This is Johnny, the chubby, Caucasian, Christian, closeted conservative. Some might say I'm everything wrong with the world, but don't take their word for it. Make up your own mind. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Chubby Caucasian Christian Closeted Conservative. I apologize for being a few days late and several dollars short, but my wife and we have been in the middle of moving, and if you've been through that recently, you know the headache that it can be. The house is a little bit of a fixer-upper, a handful of major things, but the majority of it is minor cosmetic stuff. I mean, who paints a bathroom pea yellow? I don't understand. I guess it's to hide if you actually miss. I don't know, but hopefully we can repaint the bathroom in the next few weeks. Now, I know I spent the entirety of my last episode talking about the NFL, but I think it's important to go back to this topic since there has been some developments since that episode. Once again, please try to understand me and allow me to reiterate. I don't hate the NFL. I think what they are doing is wrong. It slightly offends me, and it has really turned me off from NFL. I'm just not as interested in it as I have been previously. I'm much more interested in the NHL. So far, I have yet to miss a Caps game, and it's nice to flip over to NASCAR occasionally. It's a little boring, and I'm not completely into it yet. I don't know all of the major players or all the rules, but I always flip over to see if there's been a wreck recently. And again, I was not calling for a boycott on the NFL. I really was not judging anyone who watched or decided not to watch the NFL. All I was doing was expressing my opinion and my emotions. See, when you're a chubby Caucasian Christian closeted conservative living in Maryland, a deep blue state near a even darker blue city like Baltimore, your opinion and stance, no matter what it is not only incorrect, but it doesn't matter, which is a large reason why I bought this microphone. And it was funny how important this microphone was to me when we were moving. I actually, instead of putting it in the pod, I'm not privileged enough or rich enough to actually hire movers. So we got a pod. By the way, was very happy with the pod. Probably saved me around $2,000. There was actually some mirrors and some we had these glass end tables that we put in the pod that I really didn't think would make it, but they did. I was shocked. But this microphone was one of the last things that I packed up at our old house. It did not go in the pod. It sat in a box next to me in my truck as my wife and I drove to the new house. And it was one of the first things that I unpacked and put in our bedroom. It was one of the first things that I brought in the house, and I put it in a special place where I knew it wouldn't get damaged. And it sat there until I was ready to start recording this episode. I didn't realize how important this microphone was to me, and the experience that I get talking into it and expressing my opinion and my ideas that are not widely accepted in this area, until I found out how I was actually handling the microphone and moving it from one place to another. And just how uncomfortable. I mean, I put my grandmother's china cabinet in the pod and didn't think twice about it. But the microphone sat next to me in a box. And this microphone and this podcast is my voice. I don't have to really watch what I say. You can either listen to it or turn it off, just like me and the NFL. We live in America, the greatest country that God has ever gifted man. I respect and understand those players in the NFL who want to, in my opinion, disrespect the national anthem, the flag, the American flag, and the individuals who have died for that flag and under that flag. I fully support their freedom to do that. However, I think it's wrong, and I hope that they would fully support me changing the channel. But I got into that a lot in my last episode, talked about the Black national anthem, and that episode was really important to me. I was able to get a lot of my ideas and emotions out. But since Since then, Jon Gruden resigned, actually was forced out, and I would even say possibly fired. So let's jump right in and chew the fat about the woke NFL. During this entire episode, I'm going to be referencing a New York Times article, Raiders coach resigns after homophobic and misogynistic emails. This article was published October 11, 2021, and was updated October 14th, 2021. All of the articles are on my Facebook. Go to Facebook, search the Chubby Caucasian Christian Closeted Conservative, and look for the Eagle. You scroll down, you can find all of the articles, all of my references on my Facebook. If Jon Gruden was my employee and I saw these emails or knew that he was being a jerk to people and just not being a nice guy and talking about people behind their back, I don't really find those respectable qualities. I hope that Jon Gruden is not a role model for my son. And if I was the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, I might have encouraged him to resign as well. This does not look good for the team. It does not look good for the organization. By the way, you're kind of a jerk. And these statements that you have seen, I don't really see uniting a football team, bringing a football team together, which from my past interest in the NFL, that team unity is very important. The cohesion and the ability that players have to work together, I believe, reflects on the field. I would even go as far to say the friendships that they have on the team and the respect that they show one another can or is apparent on the field. I would never support anybody who uses foul language. I really don't even like being around individuals who curse or, have foul language or talk dirty. I understand emotions, anger, and, cursing occasionally, but I've hung around people who have found some sort of way and mastered this skill of working profanity into just average conversations and basically every other word. I don't want to be hypocritical. I've stubbed my toe before, So, I am not perfect, but I don't use these words in an everyday conversation. Jon Gruden, these words, I definitely would have talked to him about it and said, you know what, if things don't change, we might have to talk about disciplinary action. It's a shame that those kind of conversations don't happen in the common everyday workplace. I think this is another example of how this world has fallen further and further away from the Lord, that language like this is just acceptable. But with this whole Jon Gruden thing, I think there's a much deeper story here that involves like this selective moral outrage. Certain people are held to higher standards than others. We have an issue with some sort of two-tier justice accountability system where hypocritically two people act in similar fashions. However, one is held to a higher standard and canceled, while the other individual's politically incorrect statements or actions are judged on a totally different scale and can even be just like shoved under the rug when it comes to the media and how they're held to accountability. So Jon Gruden was basically fired from his head coach position with the Las Vegas Raiders. And we can split hairs. We can have the conversation as whether he possibly deserved it or not. I would like to see if there were any conversations between him and his boss prior to this about his actions and language and how that's unacceptable. So according to the New York Times, Jon Gruden was fired because of emails in which he made homophobic and misogynistic remarks following an early report of racist statements about a union leader. Jon Gruden said on Twitter, "I'm sorry, I never meant to hurt anyone." That was part of his statement saying that he resigned and stuff. Further down in this article, it states that Gruden had casually and frequently unleashed misogynistic and homophobic language. He denounced the emergence of women as referees, the drafting of a gay player, gender and the tolerance of players protesting during the playing of the national anthem. My opinion, I don't really care what your race, gender, sexual preference, sexual orientation, or whatever sort of disability you have, even if it's a gender identification disorder. In my opinion, if you can perform the job, if you can referee correctly, if you can play the game, then you should be on a team. I have to agree with Jon Gruden. My tolerance of the players protesting during the national anthem was very low and really has been the major reason why I'm not interested in watching or participating in the NFL this year. I think it's interesting that in this line, they use the word gay. As far as my understanding, I'm only a chubby Caucasian Christian closeted conservative, but as far as I understand, they prefer the word homosexual. And I have a feeling that these homophobic words that we are referring to, that Jon Gruden used, it's never really confirmed in this article, but I'm got a feeling that it was not far from the word that they used in this sentence. Also, we're going to get to this, Obama admitted and apologized for homophobic slurs as well when he was a teenager. This article goes on to say that in early 2018, Gruden criticized Goodell and Eric Reed, a player who had demonstrated during the playing of the national anthem, and said that he should be fired. Thank you, New York Times, for reporting this. In several instances, Gruden used a homophobic slur to refer to Goodell and offensive language to describe some NFL owners, coaches, and journalists who covered the league. The fact that this is put in this article shows me the New York Times biased. I hope that when Gruden was fired, that this was not discussed in his termination. He should have every right to say these players demonstrating for the national anthem should be fired. He should have every right to do that, just like the NFL fired him for using homophobic and misogynistic words. This paragraph states nothing about him calling Eric Reed or other people who protest bad names or anything like that. Gruden exchanged emails with Allen and other men that included photos of women wearing only bikini bottoms, including one photo of 2 Washington team leaders. We are going to come back to this. And this is an individual that I'm going to compare to Gruden. You want to talk about a dirtbag of an individual in the NFL? Bruce Allen is in the top 5. And if you are a liberal Larry or Linda, I don't see how this guy doesn't make your one and only biggest dirtbag involved in the NFL. I guess we can look past this because Bruce Allen is no longer involved in the NFL. He was formerly the president of the Washington football team. Now, this is the reason I believe Gruden was fired. The New York Times, this is far down in the article. I'll just read it for you. Gruden also criticized President Barack Obama during his re-election campaign in 2012, as well as then Vice President Joseph R. Biden, whom Gruden called a nervous, clueless, and a word I'm not going to say. My opinion, that is the straw that broke the camel's back. The NFL was like, you know what? We can overlook all of this stuff. We'll put that under the rug. We'll look the other way about this. We'll try to hide that from the media. Whatever you got to do. You criticize the first black president of the United States 9 years ago and also had something negative to say about Joseph Biden? The NFL has become so woke. They have bought into this cancel culture where the goalposts continuously move. Goodell, if you are listening to me, just wait. Just wait. You have bought into this and created a monster that one day I believe is going to come back and eat you alive. And Goodell, please do me a favor. If you are so worried and so upset about what people say about the president of the United States, can we maybe, just maybe, hold Troy Aikman and Joe Buck accountable for what they said on a hot mic? These 2 announcers already stink. Troy Aikman and Joe Buck are both idiots. I couldn't stand stand watching a game that they announced. And in fact, I would actually mute it so I didn't have to hear their commentary. But they were caught on a hot mic talking about a flyover that happened at one of their games and how this wouldn't happen under the Harris-Biden administration. I would love for their emails to be released. Goodell, please go through their emails. I would bet my bottom dollar that these two have sent emails talking negatively about a president of the United States. It's not a president that you supported, so I guess it doesn't matter to you, but it'd be nice if you were not a hypocrite and held everybody to the same standard. And I appreciate the New York Times throwing that little tidbit in there because in my opinion, that is the real reason why Gruden was stepped down. We are fired. We can't have that in the NFL. All this other stuff we could hide under the rug. But when the radical progressive Linda and Larry's hear about that you talk bad about Barack Obama in 2012 and called our current puppet of a president a body part of the female reproductive system. I'm actually surprised that the New York Times waited towards the end to inform us of Jon Gruden's race. This is important to them, just in case you didn't pick up on that already, that we can't have a white person using misogynistic, racial, homophobic slurs. We just can't. And we can't even have him describing body parts of individuals who are black. That's what this article says. Further on down, Jon Gruden and some of his other peers used banter that flies in the face of the league's public denouncement of racism and sexism and its promise to be more inclusive and criticism for not listening to concerns of black players who make up about 70% of the roster. Let me tell you what, this is BS. The NFL is not worried about inclusiveness. This is a lie. If they were worried about inclusiveness, this 70% of African American players, they would be doing something about that. This article goes on to say, in June, the NFL congratulated Nasabi after he became the first active NFL player to publicly declare that he is gay. This is the important thing about these organizations. Someone's sexual identification disorder. I don't really care. Why can't we congratulate him for making it a team, for actually being able to play the game? And at the very end of this article, it talks about in 2015, an email went out that included several individuals where Gruden crudely asked Allen to tell Brian Glazer, whose family owns the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where Gruden coached until 2018 to perform oral sex on him. Allen said Glazer would take him up on that offer. You know what Gruden probably said, most likely said, is, can you tell him to suck it? Allen and Gruden also mocked Caitlyn Jenner, who received an award from ESPN in 2015 after, and I'm going to paraphrase here, I'm going to put my own language into this, after Bruce Jenner decided to change the first name to Caitlyn Jenner. But let's take that. Let's take this story and compare it to a USA Today article that came out in December of 2020. This is almost a year ago. This is from a USA Today article that I've referenced before when we're talking about holding people accountable, holding people to the same standards. We give a pass to some people while other people we arrest for spitting on the sidewalk. So in 2020, former President Barack Obama apologized in his memoir, writing that he used homophobic slurs when he was a teen. Now, let me ask you this. A liberal Larry and liberal Linda out there, please contact me, reach out to me, post on Facebook, direct message me, leave a message on my Anchor account. If this memoir would have been written in 2014, 2015, would we have called for an impeachment of this president? And if your answer is no, can you please explain it to me why? I would call you straight out a hypocrite. This article, this USA Today article, which I've quoted in past episodes, says that celebrities and politicians, like everyday people, often make mistakes when speaking or posting on social media and can also say harmful words on purpose. People are quick in this era of cancel culture to ridicule someone for saying something inappropriate. But can we and should we forgive people for their past or even current problematic problematic views. This article is so unbelievable. When you compare this, and I'm looking at these articles side by side, when you look how USA Today tries to underplay these comments from certain individuals, from certain political parties, and use words like mistake, and talk about forgiving these individuals. I'll tell you what right now, Barack Obama, when he was in his teen, if he repeatedly used homophobic slurs, that was not a mistake. That happened in my high school. People did it because they thought it was cool. So I guarantee you, if this was brought, hopefully we all can agree on this. Every liberal Larry and Linda, please, if you think I am wrong, reach out and tell me. This is something we can all find common ground on. If this memoir would have been written in 2014, 2015, and Barack Obama said that he used homophobic slurs when he was a teen, he would have not been impeached. This would have been pushed under the rug. There is a reason that this did not come out when he was running for president or when he was president. This article also says, and I've quoted this before, if they make amends, then the wronged individual can decide whether to forgive them or not. So we need to get every individual who suffers from a mental illness that includes some sort of gender identification disorder and ask them if they have forgiven Barack Obama or not. And then, according to this article, as a society, we can decide whether to forgive him or not. Now, I have a lot of individuals continue to ask me about the NFL season. And I have tried to give what I would hope would be acceptable answers to them. But see, well, let me describe what I tell them first. First, I tell them that, and this is not 100% true, and I would only share this with you guys. First, I tell them that I don't really care for the COVID policies that the NFL has put in place. And I tell them that is one of the biggest reasons I'm not watching it, that they need to lose viewers in order to change their COVID policies. For some reason, that is not good enough for them. These people who want to require vaccine passports to travel over states, these individuals who want to have apps that follow you around and keep track of where you go and the people that you interact with to stop spread of COVID. These individuals who call certain protests super spreader events. These people who call college football games super spreader events, but the NFL games are fine. These liberal Larry and Lindas overlook these flaws in the NFL COVID policy, flaws that the left media has pointed out for other events. They overlook these flaws, what they should consider flaws in the NFL, because the NFL has become woke. I mean, Joe Biden has continuously talked about how important and how dangerous COVID is. And Dr. Fauci has even talked about regulating our holiday get-togethers. If we're not allowed to gather for the holidays, Dr. Fauci talked about unvaccinated people. If unvaccinated people are not allowed to get together for the holidays, then why can unvaccinated people get together to watch a football game? That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And I tell these individuals, I am supposed to watch an NFL game, watch people without masks in the middle of COVID, sitting next to each other, crammed into stadiums. They have indoor stadiums, crammed into stadiums. And I'm supposed to cheer for this, even though all of your politicians, all of your people, everybody that you voted for in this blue Maryland state, all of them have continuously said that COVID should be one of America's biggest priorities, and you're going to look the other way for an entertainment?
So let me be clear. Yes, we've made incredible progress in vaccinating Americans, with over 182 million people being fully vaccinated as of today. But this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And it's caused by the fact that despite Americans having an unprecedented and successful vaccination program, despite the fact that for almost 5 months, free vaccines have been available in 80,000 locations, we still have over 70 million Americans who have failed to get a single shot. The second piece of my plan is continuing to protect the vaccinated. For the vast majority of you who've gotten vaccinated, I understand your anger at those who haven't gotten vaccinated. I understand the anxiety about getting a breakthrough case for you now. Let me close with this. We also made so much progress during the past 8 months in this pandemic, and now we face a critical moment. We have the tools. We have the plan. We just have to finish the job together as one nation. And I know we can. I know we can. God bless you all, and please look out for your own self-interest and health here. Get vaccinated.
And Dr. Fauci, lastly, we know the best way to keep safe is to be vaccinated. But what are your guidelines for the upcoming holidays? Will you be giving out Halloween candy? What do we do Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the other holidays?
Well, Martha, I believe strongly that, particularly in the vaccinated people, if you're vaccinated and your family members are vaccinated, those who are eligible, and that is obviously very young children and not yet eligible, that you can enjoy the holidays. You can enjoy Halloween, trick-or-treating, and certainly Thanksgiving with your family and Christmas with your families. That's one of the reasons why we emphasize why it's so important to get vaccinated, not only for your own safety, for that of your family, but also for the good of the community to keep the level of infection down.
The end game is to go well beyond that, beyond July 4th, into the summer and beyond, with the ultimate goal of crushing the outbreak completely in the United States. Now, what are one of the main obstacles for that? Obviously, it's under-vaccinated people in under-vaccinated regions of the country.
All of these clips have happened within the last 2 months. So here we have the all-supreme NIH director, Anthony Fauci, COVID czar, knows all things COVID, and our God King, Joseph Biden, talking about how important vaccines are. And Fauci even goes as far as to say that if people are unvaccinated, or hint at, if people are unvaccinated, they might not be able to enjoy the holidays together. Now, maybe I have my priorities backwards, and these liberal Larrys and Lindas have their priorities straight, but I would much rather get together with my family. I would much rather my children be able to go to school than to go to a football game. So I attempt to explain to these individuals that I do not agree with the COVID policies. In fact, I went as far as to tell several of them that I'm thinking about becoming a Raiders fan. And the reason that I would support the Raiders is because Las Vegas does not allow you into that stadium unless you are vaccinated. And of course, one-size-fits-all medicine is what our president and Dr. Tony Fauci practice right now. It doesn't matter if you already had COVID, if you have some underlying condition, you just need to go get the needle in your arm as soon as you possibly can. I mean, that is what we heard in those clips, right? I'm not insane. So how can a liberal Larry or Linda who is bought into all of these ideas, everything that Dr. Fauci has, plush pillows of Dr. Fauci and little stuffed animals of Dr. Fauci, and hung Biden-Harris signs in their front yard, and then smiled and held their head high as they stood in line waiting to vote for this idiot. How can these people turn on a TV Sunday, turn on a football game, and then look at themselves in the mirror, or call themselves a Democrat or liberal? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And then when you look at all of the racism that is going on in the NFL, the Washington football team, I love this USA Today article. I know I've referenced it in the past. I've referenced it this episode, and I will probably reference it in the future. It is posted on my Facebook. Go and look at it. The reason I love this article is because it shows the conditions of forgiveness. According to Robinson Mosley, a 36-year-old, a gay African-American 36-year-old who lives in Mobile, Alabama, who is also a psychologist. And she has 5 steps to conditional forgiveness. You have to express regret. You have to flat out apologize. That's the first one. Number 2, accepting responsibility of saying, instead of saying you were right, say you were wrong. Making restitution. Ask what you can do to make it right. Genuinely repenting. Doing your best to not make the mistake again, and requesting forgiveness. Asking what you have to do to be forgiven. There are conditions for forgiveness. So how can we look at an organization like the NFL, who has allowed the Washington football team, previously called the Washington Redskins, stay with that name for what, over 40 years? I would love to hear Robinson Mosley or any other liberal out there who's read this article, who has conditions of forgiveness, who holds certain people to certain conditions for forgiveness for mistakes that they have made in the past. How can any Washington liberal fan watch this team, root for this team, and then look at themselves in the mirror? How is that even possible? Now, please remember, all I'm trying to do is look at this from the perspective of a crazy, radical progressive. I have read to you the standards of forgiveness, the conditional forgiveness. My question is, has Roger Goodell met these conditions? Has Dan Snyder met these conditions? I don't think so. I don't think Roger Goodell or Dan Snyder has met these conditions. In fact, I would go as far as to say Dan Snyder, the only reason he changed the name was because of all the other controversies surrounding him, his family, and the Washington cheerleaders. So after I explained to this liberal Larry and Linda that I don't think the COVID protocol is good enough, then I'm thinking about becoming a Raiders fan because they have segregated and divided people in their stadium based on whether or not you've been vaccinated, which you think they would understand, but they don't. And then lastly, I remind them what Joe Biden said.
According to the United States intelligence community, domestic terrorism from white supremacists is the most lethal terrorist threat in the homeland. To that end, our administration is carrying out the first ever comprehensive effort to tackle the threat posed by domestic terrorism, including white supremacy.
And then I go on to remind this individual, one of them, I said, can you look up the Webster's definition of white supremacy? The definition of white supremacy, according to Webster's, is the belief that the white race is inherently superior to other races and that white people should have control over people of other races. And the second one is the social, economic, and political systems that collectively enable white people to maintain power over people of other races. And then I tell them, Jon Gruden fits this description. In fact, the majority of NFL owners fit this description. The majority of NFL coaches fit this. The majority of NFL quarterbacks fit this. And I'm just happy that I jokingly tell them again. One of the guys thought I was being serious. I tell them, you know what? This is another reason why I'm thinking of being a Raiders fan. Jon Gruden, according to this definition and your beliefs, is most likely a white supremacist. He made homophobic, misogynistic phrases and talked about an individual's lips in emails. And I'm just happy that the Las Vegas Raiders are just becoming more and more and more woke. I told this to an individual who is a Washington fan and used to wear Redskin jerseys and stuff. You know, I listen to quite a few political podcasts and conservative talk radio. And there's one individual that I love. I'm not going to name his name here, but there's one individual that I love. And they continuously bring up this idea of this selective moral outrage and how the radical left doesn't actually care about this stuff. And I used to think that was a little tinfoil hat theory and that this individual really doesn't, I don't really see that possible. But the NFL, that's a perfect example of it. They don't actually really care because if they did, they would have done something about the Washington cheerleaders. The Washington football team in DC, they are the Washington team in Maryland, a dark blue state in a darker blue city. There should be no one showing up to the stadium. And I don't understand how you can buy NFL Red Zone when there's a team like the Chiefs. And according to the standards of forgiveness that USA Today so gratefully provided to us a little less than a year ago, according to a 36-year-old psychologist, whatever, USA Today still published it on the conditions of forgiveness. I don't think the NFL has met those conditions, let alone the Washington football team. And obviously, the Chiefs could care less. There is selective outrage. These people, they don't actually care. When you begin to play this identity politics and criticize certain people for treating other people differently or what you see as differently and holding people to different standards, lowering the standards for certain individuals, and you don't enforce that worldwide or even nationwide, in my opinion, you come off as a hypocrite. And the more and more I see this, the more and more I think that certain people don't actually care. Don't get me wrong. There are plenty of Democrats and progressives out there who actually truly do believe what they preach, what they think, and actually do just want the world a better place. But they are only told half the story and they are deceived. The individuals who are actually running this show, they really do select which individuals they actually care about, or states or countries, and what benefits them. they don't actually care. They make these stands and these statements because they think it's going to help them further on down the road. Anyhow, that's going to wrap me up for today. I'm sorry again that this episode is coming out a little late and that I haven't been great about posting on Facebook, but my wife and I, we are finally getting settled in our new home, and I'm going to pick that up again. I'm sorry again, too, for harping on the NFL again. And actually, in my next episode, I have something very exciting planned. And I'm actually going to touch on the NFL again in my next episode. And I apologize for that. But I really am emotional about this and have conflicting feelings and thoughts and ideas about this topic. And I can't talk about it with anybody else. And in order to work through that, I like to talk things out. And in my life currently, there are only certain individuals that I can talk to about this, and others that don't even want to listen. They don't want to listen because they've already made prejudice assumptions about me. Thank you again for listening. Remember to rate, like, comment, and subscribe. Please look me up on Facebook, YouTube, Anchor, or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search the Chubby Caucasian Christian Closeted Conservative and look for my eagle. I actually had a family member paint that eagle, and I loved it so much that they gave me the original. She's very patriotic. She loves the Lord. Very, very, very talented. So if you're interested in getting a copy of some of her work, you can go to Redbubble. You'll find a link to it in my description. But if you go to Redbubble and you search Robin N. Brown, that's Robin as the bird, the letter N, and the color brown, you'll see all of her pieces of work. She actually just painted, it's been a couple months now, but painted a new eagle that's clutching the American flag. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece. You can get a print of it. You can get it on a backpack, on a travel mug. There's so many different options. I would just encourage you to go over there and just take a look. Just take a look. Again, like I said earlier, I'm interested in having a conversation about the NFL or hearing other people's opinions. If you want to reach out to me, please direct message me on Facebook, post on my Facebook. You can also leave a voice message on Anchor. It's really cool. You go to Anchor, search the Chubby Caucasian Christian Closeted Conservative. Once you find my eagle, you can leave a minute-long message. If you have more to say than just a minute long, please, please, please leave multiple messages. I would just encourage everybody again to remain in prayer and meditation for our country, for our leaders, and we will see you later.